Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I'm your host tonight. My name is Nick Walsh. I'm here with my good friend, my co-host, my confidant, I don't know. I was going to say lover, but I don't think that's accurate.
We'll meet in the middle and go cuddle buddy.
Okay, yeah, sure, that one. I'm here with Rogers. I'm here with Matt Rogers. What's going on, dude?
What is up, Walsh? We are coming off the best week and a half of the fantasy football season. Everyone's probably done their drafts and everything. It's a crazy week. I know it was for you as well. I'm ready for some football, dude.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. You're saying everyone's probably done their drafts. I mean, hopefully by the time you guys are hearing this, it's going to be Thursday morning. The first game is going to be Thursday night. So I mean, you got to cram it in real quick if you hadn't. Yeah. But yeah, football's right here, man. We got Patriots, we got Chiefs coming up. I'm very excited. I'm gonna go into work early to make sure I leave early to make sure I can watch the entire game, rather than risking public transportation getting delayed, because we all know how that can go. But
yes.
But
I'm
yeah,
gonna start drinking at 8 a.m.
That sounds like the right call. Maybe I should be doing that. Maybe I should bring a flask to work and just be pounding whiskey all day.
It's the only way. It's the only way to celebrate.
Yeah, if any of my bosses are listening to this, I'm not doing that. I'm winking at Rogers through the camera. But no, I'm probably not gonna do that. What I should do before we get into the meat and potatoes of this podcast is I should give a shout out here to Bench Boss. That's right, that's Bench Boss. You know them as View Pick, but they've got a brand new name. That doesn't mean anything's any different, though. They're still the revolutionary app that allows you to play fantasy football live while watching the game on TV. Predict the plays, the results of the play, and literally play fantasy football. And you can sign up for the beta now by going to letstalkfantasyfootball.com/benchboss. I believe it is benchboss.tv is their new URL. Definitely check that out. Same site we've been, if you're a listener, a consistent listener, same site that we've been recommending to you guys for a while, just brand new name. So guys, we have some stuff to get into. We're going to give you a little bit of news. We're going to talk a little bit about our drafts, some guys that we got a lot of, some guys we wish we had. And then, we're going to go through each and every game. We're going to break it down a little bit, let you know the matchups that you need to be taking advantage of this week. That sound good to you, Rogers?
I'm down.
Oh shit, we also have some reader questions. So so we're going to throw those in at the end too. I almost forgot about those, but I didn't. I remember.
The most important part, helping out the people.
Exactly. We are a podcast of the people, I think.
We are people, and I think that's half of the requirements.
Right. I feel like to be of the people, you need to be people, and then you also, to be a podcast of the people, you also need to be a podcast. So we got both halves there.
I'm convinced.
Yeah, no, definitely true. So, Rogers, let's get into it. We got a little bit of news. The two real big hitters here are, one, the Ezekiel Elliott suspension was upheld. So he went through the appeals process. The suspension was upheld, but he's still playing week 1. I've read into this, and I don't honestly remember what the details of, or why he's playing week 1 and they're not just starting the suspension week 1. Do you remember or understand this?
I know the details you really need to know, and vaguely know the ones you're referring to. So pretty much what happened was they had a deadline internally that they needed to meet to make this decision in order to give the Cowboys enough notice for week 1 that Zeke wasn't going to play. And they passed that deadline because maybe the Cowboys are on Sunday Night Football against the Giants. That's, take what you will from that. But so the suspension will still be upheld for the full 6 games after he plays in week 1, unless the last-ditch effort for Zeke to not miss any games, which is still a possibility as slim as it is he is filing a restraining order, something more specific than that. It's called a TRO, restraining order, against the NFL. And I'm not sure the specifics there, but if he's granted that restraining order, then the suspension would be deferred to next year, or there would be some sort of decision in the offseason and he'd be eligible to play all of this year. Right? Is that what you got from that?
Yeah, that sounds about right. So I think the major takeaways, and you went into a good amount of detail, and that's good because I didn't know all of that.
Okay.
But the major takeaway here, if you're just trying to prep your week one roster, is that if you drafted Zeke, you should have him in there because he's going to play. And then the other piece of news that we have here is that the Bucs Dolphins game is canceled. It's going to be moved to week 11. So neither of those teams is going to have one of the regular bye weeks. Basically, we have Hurricane Irma coming in, Category 5 hurricane, and thoughts to everyone in the path of that. Stay safe, certainly. But the game's canceled this week, so that means don't play any of your Bucs or your Dolphins. And with those two pieces of news, it really screwed my strategy of drafting McFadden and or Jaquiz if you're waiting on running back because you have them for the first couple of weeks, because now you have neither of them for at least week one.
They're the most surefire useless running backs other than Jay Ajayi for week one, and it was the opposite 3 days ago.
Yeah, for sure. There's one league where I really waited on running back, and I was banking on starting both of them week one. So now I'm gonna have to really mess around and possibly make some real ugly week one starts. But
yeah, also there's some people out there which a common draft script could have gone Mike Evans, Jay Ajayi, like straight up.
Oh, totally.
That's a very possible outcome for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it's just week one. All right, go figure something else out, jerks.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, the safety of the area is definitely the most important thing. As much as it sucks, it's convenient that both teams have the same bye week.
Yes.
16 straight games.
Yeah, which certainly that kind of sucks too, playing the 16 straight weeks. But
it does.
What can you do? Not a ton, really. So Rogers, let's get into a little bit about our drafts, because us and the other. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to say one last thing that we should probably say is it's a clear cut that you won't be playing a lot of those guys. Obviously you won't be playing any of those guys in those teams. But Jameis Winston as a late round quarterback without a backup was probably a very common strategy amongst people. And just some guys that I would say would probably be streamable for you this week would be Tyrod. Carson Palmer has a nice matchup. And what was the other one I put here? Andy Dalton, something like that. Someone that didn't get drafted, a pick up and drop. So just keep those names in mind.
My favorite quarterbacks to draft on teams where I'm just planning on streaming were the two Carsons, Carson Palmer and Carson Wentz. So I'm a big fan of both of those, certainly.
Yep, those are good.
All right. So then let's get into a little bit our drafts and a couple of guys that we were heavy on, and then maybe some guys that we don't own that we wish we maybe picked up a little bit. So I'll start with you. Who are the guys that you're pretty heavy on throughout your leagues?
Yeah, it's some guys that I've realized I've just been, I don't know if it's my rankings or what, but I've just been ending up with a lot of shares of these dudes. And the number one for me is Kareem Hunt. And I actually got sort of fortunate in the first draft that I took him where the Spencer Ware news was kind of just breaking. And I was able to scoop him right after finding that out in the 7th round. But it sort of became he was my 11th ranked running back going forward. And I've also realized that I have owned a Chiefs running back in almost every one of my leagues every single year, whether it's Kendrick West in those days and running him off the waiver wire in our league that we do, Walsh, or Spencer Ware I had in every league last year. So Kareem Hunt is intriguing as hell. We'll get into that game a little bit later, what to expect from him going forward, but I am pumped to own a lot of Kareem Hunt.
Nice. Yeah. I like that. He's a guy who's not to spoil it, but yeah, I'll spoil it. He's a guy on my list of guys that I don't own that I wish I could be more in on.
I did not see that. Very sweet.
Yeah. And then talk to me about the other two that you have written down here.
So I'll just get quick. Kelvin Benjamin, I'm ending up a lot on par. That's for sure because I'm very high on him. I think I own him in 3 of my 5 leagues. And I am all in on him. He's probably the guy that I love the most in fantasy preseason. He's got a crazy easy schedule. I think he's going to be a top 10 receiver. He's coming back a little more healthy. And last year to the eye test, he was pretty bad. And if you go back and look at it, I think in standard leagues, he was the 20th best receiver. So, I mean, I think he can only go up from last year. The Panthers' schedule is cake, especially for wide receivers. Very, very pumped on my shares of Kelvin Benjamin. And the last guy I have here that I found on a lot of my teams is Jeremy Maclin. And that is one, Walsh, that I'm not particularly excited about. I'm finding out that he's like been my wide receiver 3 in situations where I've taken players like Gronk or like a quarterback early. And I don't know how I feel about it. I really have never liked Jeremy Maclin on any fantasy team of any year. I've never really owned him, and I find him on 3 of my teams. Not that that was right, but I've just always shied away from him.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on those dudes, or?
I mean, I'm not as high on Kelvin as you, but I'm definitely higher than the crowd. I've ended up with a little bit of him. The top 10 receiver call is, it's bold, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, certainly. All we need is a little regression back to, the mean sort of for him and Cam. The Maclin one I think is interesting, and it kind of makes sense to me because he feels like he's going lower than he should in most drafts to me is just a guy who's clearly, the number one option on that Baltimore offense in the pass game. I don't, Mike Wallace has had stretches of, superior play or whatever when literally no one else has been there, but Maclin's the guy there. So I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, certainly, to be ending up with him as like your 3rd or 4th wide receiver in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, I've actually looked over the last few days. His ADP has fallen too. And I would hope that it would have nothing to do with Mike Wallace and more just your lack of confidence in the Ravens or Flacco's health. But right. I agree with you. Maybe I shouldn't be that pissed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it certainly is what it is, and we'll see how it plays out. In terms of my guys, I've ended up with AJ Green a lot just because he's been – I've been drafting him anywhere from like 6th overall to finding him like 10th overall in drafts, maybe even a little bit later. And I just seem to be a bit higher relative to other players on him than other people. I think you're getting him at a huge discount. He was arguably the best receiver in the league last year until he got hurt. I've been ending up with a lot of Alshon Jeffrey in the 3rd round, and he's a guy that I didn't expect maybe to end up with, but I've been coming around a lot on just how much the Eagles are going to pass this year. Which is kind of what led me to drafting Carson Wentz in a couple leagues as well. But Alshon Jeffrey, I've been getting a lot in that 3rd round. I've been getting a lot of Travis Kelce. That's definitely on purpose. I think he's going to have the most targets of any tight end in the NFL last year. And most of the time you can snag him in the 4th round. So I'm pretty about that. I think I got him in the 5th in one draft where I specifically chose not to take him in the 4th. So I was like, no, I'm not taking Kelce this time. And then he was still there when I came back around. And I was like, you know what, God, You're giving me the sign here. And then 2 last guys real quick. Martavis Bryant, I've ended up with a lot. I'm very high on. Yeah, I'm high on him as a guy who could end up being a top 10 wide receiver. I don't think it's the likeliest outcome, but I think the reason I've ended up with him so much is because I've been going wide receiver heavy early. So then I can snag Martavis. Like I'm willing to take more of a risk with him as like my wide receiver 4 than I am as like my wide receiver 2. And then if he hits, I can maybe trade some other guys later down the line. So I've been getting a lot of Martavis and then a lot of Marcus Mariota just because he's slipped late. He's got the best weapons of his career, and I really think this is going to be the best season of his career. A guy that can run the ball a little bit too. So he's been an ideal late round quarterback target for me.
So to spoil one of mine as well, Mariota is one of the guys that I wish I was in on that I think is going to have a big year too. His price is just so perfect. He goes, you can get him in the 11th round of drafts, and like you said, he's got top 5 upside this year for sure.
Absolutely. Do you want to go through some of Shrek and Vinny's picks, or should I?
Yeah, I'll run through Vinny's right here because I don't really agree with many of them, if only one of them, perhaps. So
I don't agree with a lot of them either.
Okay, so Vinny said that he owns a lot of Isaiah Crowell, which just is shocking to me, and that he's very pumped about it. He owns a lot of Doug Martin and is pumped about it, which I really would love to get his take on. I'm sure we will on the next podcast. Pierre Garçon, he owns a lot of, and that's pretty good. Austin Hooper, which you guys have talked about on previous podcasts, and Stephon Diggs, who he is pumped on. Yeah, I don't know. That's all I have to say. I don't know.
I'm not that pumped on Crowell or Martin. The rest of the guys, sure.
Yeah, and then some other guys that Vinny wishes that he had. that he's got no real shares in, or Eric Ebron, which Nick Schreck, our fellow podcast guy, just stole him right before Vinny wanted to in the last draft of the preseason for us. So that was really funny. Vinny didn't get to own Ebron. He was like texting me too, and he was like, "I'm gonna take Ebron. It's gonna finally happen." And then Schreck just stole him.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he wishes he had Todd Gurley. Also kind of shocked about Randall Cobb. He has none of and wants. We know he loves Dez, and Russell Wilson is a guy he wishes he could get on too, which I agree with. I don't know any Russell Wilson. He could have a big year.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Russell Wilson was always in each draft. He was a guy that like I wanted to slip a couple rounds further. In our main draft, he actually went the pick before I was going to take him, and I just ended up with none of him. So we'll see how that goes. And then Shrek's guys were Keenan Allen, Bilal Powell, and Kenny Golladay. Shrek says of Keenan Allen that he's his wide receiver 2 in all places. He's not worried about the health, and he expects a big bounce back, pulling in a ton of targets for Phillip Rivers. So he just expects big things from Keenan Allen, has him all over the place. Bilal Powell, he says he thinks he's going to catch a ton of balls on the shitty Jets team. So that's a lot of upside for a lot of volume. And then Kenny Golladay, I believe it was you and me spoke about him. He's been a red zone monster in the preseason. He's on a team that, Stafford has historically passed a lot, though he didn't towards the end of the year last year. And a team that's really missing a big red zone threat with Anquan Bolden leaving. So Kenny Golladay, a nice late round flyer, and Shrek took a lot of them as well.
Yep.
So then Don's guys. Did you have Don's text?
Yeah.
On you?
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I just didn't want to type it out. It's as I like to do when Don sends me stuff like this. I like to read it for the first time aloud. And so usually he says, "I own a lot of Jay Ajayi and Melvin Gordon." That's a big shocker. Every draft that I see him do, he takes those dudes. And Devontae Parker. I'm very pumped on it. Extremely pumped on Parker because I think he's going to be a stud this year. Even though his ADP has risen lately, I still think that I'm getting him at good value in drafts. Says, I really wish I owned Jordy Nelson because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have the best year he's had since 2014. And with Jordy another year removed from his injury, they're going to light it up. I like that, Don. He says that he wishes he owned more Keenan Allen, sort of for the same reasons that Shrek loves him. He's not that concerned about the injury. He also wishes that he had Carlos Hyde, who he thinks is going to have a great bounce back year and is a great running back value for where he's going in drafts if you go wide receiver heavy to start.
Okay, fair enough.
Cool.
I guess that works. And then for myself, you and Shrek, we haven't really gone through the players that we don't own but wish we could own more of. So talk to me about your ones here. You already talked a little bit about Mariota, but tell me about the other 3.
Yeah, these are guys that I'm fine that I didn't draft because of where they were going and my reasons are right, but I feel like I'm making the wrong decision possibly. So the first one is going to be Brandon Cooks. I just shied away from it, especially after the Edelman injury when he just started to rise up to 10th, 11th overall in some drafts. And I just feel like it could totally pay off for somebody, and I just did not have the balls to do it. Sort of the same argument I would say for Marshawn Lynch, who was my second guy. I was not willing to buy him at his value, but I think it could totally be justified. And we might learn that in week 3. And I'm just going to be like, shit, I'm not in on that train. I alluded to Marcus Mariota, and then I sort of hinted that Pierre Garçon was my last guy that I wish I owned, just because I was foolishly passing on him at good value spots for him. And it's just not a sexy pick. And I feel like for that reason, I talked myself out of the logic behind it in a lot of drafts. And I'm kind of disappointed in myself.
That's very fair. I kind of did the same thing with Garçon, and he was a guy that I actively meant to target and really didn't end up with a lot. My guys that I had there were, Kareem Hunt, as I said before, and then Michael Crabtree. He was a guy I thought I was going to end up with a lot of, and same sort of thing, just kept going a pick or two before I was able to snag him, really. And yeah. I think that was more bad luck than anything else that I didn't end up with hhim. Eric Ebron was also a guy that I was targeting a lot in the end of drafts, and pretty much because I ended up with getting Travis Kelce pretty much everywhere. I think the one draft I went, or maybe 1 or 2 drafts that I went late on tight end, I ended up with Austin Hooper. Okay. Ebron just wasn't really in the cards for me, despite the fact that I liked him a lot. And then Shrek's guys that he wrote down were Kareem Hunt, Understandable, particularly because Shrek's a Chiefs fan, and Brandon Cooks as well. And I'm kind of with you on Cooks, where he did start eking up those draft boards, but the Edelman injury to me just solidified his target share so much more than I thought going into it. So I definitely understand that one as well. I think that just about does it for, our drafts and kind of the highs and lows of them. I think overall I was pretty happy with a lot of the drafts that I did this year, but, certainly we'll see what happens going into it. So then I guess without any further ado, let's hop right into week one. So week one, basically we've got some revenge game potential. As you pointed out, you've got AP versus the Vikings. See if he gets fired up and tries to mess him up. You've got Eddie Lacy versus the Packers. Somehow I don't think Eddie Lacy is going to get the best of the Packers, but I could be wrong there. I don't know. What are your thoughts on those?
I don't really know. It's just an interesting dynamic to keep track of. Also, I really like the old lazy cheerleading coach potential of that line. Get fired up and mess them up. You just delivered there. I just felt that vibe. It's just interesting. I'm just so excited football's back. I'm like pulling storylines out of thin air. I'm like, Danny Woodhead almost thought about going to the Bengals. I read in 2010. Just like he's playing them, and this shit's crazy. I'm just getting very excited. No real value to take from it, but
fair enough. That's we appreciate the excitement nonetheless.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the Thursday night game. That is Patriots at Chiefs, or is it Chiefs at Patriots? Fuck.
I think I might have messed that up.
I don't know.
It's Chiefs at Patriots. Chiefs at Patriots. That's my
Chiefs
fault.
At Patriots. So basically what we've got here, New England is an 8-point favorite. The over-under there is 50, so that's pretty high. Vegas is expecting a lot of offense from the Patriots. But before we get into the Patriots, one of the most salient questions here, pretty much the only question on the Chiefs, I think, is what do you expect from Kareem Hunt? So, Rogers, in a game where they're an 8-point underdog, what do you expect from Kareem Hunt?
So I've been obsessing over this for the past few days. Obviously, I just said that I own a lot of Kareem Hunt shares in a lot of those situations. He's sort of my running back 2 or a flex where I'm weak at receiver situation. And the word out of their camp, if you will, I guess, has been that they plan to run all 3 backs. They re-signed CJ Spiller, who they had cut previously. And that was right after the Spencer Ware injury. They signed him back. And I'm a little nervous that I hear that. I wouldn't be surprised if Charcandrick West gets the actual start, but I think when all is said and done, Kareem Hunt, they're going to want to see what he's got. They'll probably want to ease him into the game because he's a rookie and it's prime time against the national champions. But I think when all is said and done, Kareem Hunt will get a workload that gives you enough opportunity to have a serviceable running back 2 week. Because to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe even when Spencer Ware came into the fold and Jamal Charles was getting hurt, Charcandrick West was still there. And it sort of seemed that Andy Reid, who loves to rely on one running back or just run the ball a lot in general, never really wanted to commit to Charcandrick West as that, that bell cow sort of back. And I think that Kareem Hunt is something that will eventually unfold. And I'm thinking that you get 15 touches from him this week, I would like to say. Would you think that's crazy?
Oh, I think you'd get at least 15 touches from him. Yeah, I'd expect that certainly. It'll be interesting to see, if this game does end up playing out, as Vegas expects, where the Chiefs go down, who becomes that guy in the fourth quarter where maybe they're running a hurry up offense, and is that Hunt in there? Is it West? Is it CJ Spiller even? And I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways for Hunt going into the rest of the season. But yeah, I think Kareem Hunt's an easy start as a running back 2 this week.
Yeah.
Other options on the Chiefs. I mean, obviously you're starting Kelsey. If you played him, do you have strong opinions on Tyreek Hill?
Just not to be afraid. The Chiefs are going to have to move the ball, and we anticipate that they're going to score. Even Vegas does. So Tyreek Hill, other than Travis Kelce, obviously, Tyreek Hill is that playmaker. So those 3 guys, I think you can totally feel fine rolling out there. No problem.
Cool. I like it. What do you think about the Patriots? There's some interesting questions in terms of which of their passing targets are going to get involved, and then which running back really dominates, and if any of them, and then does that actually mean anything going forward? So talk to me about the passing targets first who do you think is the guy outside of Cooks and Gronk who really gets involved in this offense?
So the common knowledge seems to assume that it would be Chris Hogan, and that probably will be the case. And what solidifies that for me is the Patriots just traded away Jacoby Brissett to the Colts over the weekend for Philip Dorsett. Now, I think Philip Dorsett is going to be more of a special teamer. It's not really something that like should be on your radar as far as owning or what his impact is. But I wonder if that's because they lack confidence in Danny Amendola's ability to return punts and kicks and also run routes. I'm wondering if they're questioning his durability. I don't know. I might be reading too much into that, but that'll either be that Philip Dorsett they want to bring into the fold as like a speedster guy. But I doubt. I still think it's going to be Chris Hogan, and I think this game will be indicative. At least snap-wise, not necessarily target-wise, because I can see Amendola having like 6 catches, but Chris Hogan seeing more of the field. I don't know. It was kind of just an up-in-the-air question. What are your thoughts?
So I think if it's going to be anyone, it's going to be Hogan. He seems like the most natural person to be out there during, the 2 wide receiver sets and whatever else. The Dorsett thing is interesting. He hasn't really shown anything in the NFL, but, was very good in college and I believe a first-round pick. So, I mean, who knows? There's potential there, certainly. I'm more inclined, and this is kind of transitioning into the backfield. I'm more inclined to think those Julian Edelman targets are going to go to one of the running backs, whether that's James White or whether that's Dion Lewis, Rex Burkhead, any combination of the 3. I think those short targets, those Julian Edelman targets, mostly get absorbed there with a little bit still being passed out to the wide receivers. So I'm much more interested to see who gets those running back snaps, who gets the targets, because during the preseason game to game, there was no pattern whatsoever.
No. So I definitely agree with the James White. He'll factor in way more in the passing game now with those Edelman targets being vacant. But first off, let me say the Patriots backfield situation already is incredibly frustrating. And I own 2 Mike Gillislee. I own Mike Gillislee in 2 leagues. And just if you own Mike Gillislee or Rex Burkhead or any of these guys, you've done this to yourself. And we shouldn't have expected anything else. And we were foolish for thinking that it would ever be clear cut and not frustrating like this. But going in, the question that I put here and I wanted to pose to you as well, Walsh, is that what I've been hearing is that Bill Belichick might like Burkhead more, but Gillislee was the guy they really went out and got and signed, and you would assume would be the goal line back. Or, everyone's talking about those LeGarrette Blount 18 touchdowns that are up in the air, which isn't really quite concrete as far as, quantifying these guys' value or potential value. But I think even if this game happens and I see Mike Gillislee get 15 carries and Rex Burkhead get 3, I still don't think I'm going to be confident that it's not going to be completely reversed the next week.
Oh yeah, I'm completely with you there. I don't know what to think, and I don't know. I don't think week 1 necessarily means a thing, because we've seen this in the past where, think of like the Jonas Gray year where he had like a 200-yard 4-touchdown game and then didn't see the field the rest of the year, basically. So it's difficult to say. I was hoping for some sort of clarity coming into the season. I don't think we've gotten any. So, I mean, if Gillislee comes out, gets all the goal line work, scores 2 touchdowns week 1, are you going to play in week 2? Like, probably. Is it going to work out for you? Maybe.
Yeah, you'll feel the exact same way you did going into week 1.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be maybe slightly more confident, but not much. Luckily, I think Gillislee's draft position generally slipped a little bit going into the season. So you likely don't need to play in week 1. And the rest of the guys, I don't think you'd be in the position to really play week 1 either. So that's likely a good thing. Do you have anything else on the Patriots?
Not really, no.
All right. Who are you picking to win this game?
Patriots.
I'm going to take the Patriots as well. I'm trying to decide because I need to have some sort of juice on this game tomorrow. I'm trying to decide like what angle I want to bet on here. But
okay,
that's for a later time, I guess. Let's move on to the Sunday games. We'll start with probably the shittiest game for fantasy out of the entire slate. That's the Jets and the Bills. Buffalo is a 6.5-point favorite. The over-under there is 42. That's not very high, understandably so. So the question here, we know that Tyrod is going to play. Is anyone outside of Shady McCoy startable for you in the entire game?
Maybe Tyrod, when we were talking about that Jameis situation in the back, or in the beginning, I mean, that would be possibly excusable because the Jets are going to be absolutely terrible. Hopefully there's better options. The deepest of leagues would be where you would start to consider like Zay Jones and Jordan Matthews or like Charles Clay or something. Or, I mean, those guys, someone's going to catch touchdowns, but don't play any of those dudes. What am I saying?
Yeah, don't play them week one. Try and see how this offense is going to work a little bit first. With the Jets wide receivers too, there was talk, there's, an undercurrent of people, I suppose, advocating maybe Robbie Anderson would be a guy this year. And then within the past week or so, the Jets have traded for Jermaine Kearse and then picked up Jeremy Curley today as well. So Curley is back with the Jets. None of their wide receivers are startable. What about Shrek's boy, Bilal Powell? Or do you have any interest in him in this game?
Oh, I really like Bilal Powell. I should have put him down. This is going to be not a shootout of scoring necessarily, but a shootout of bullshit yardage, I think, at the end especially. So I think Bilal Powell will see the field a lot. Also, the Bills' defense is a popular streaming play, and I don't know how much I necessarily love it. I mean, it makes sense, but the Bills' defense could be just as bad as the Jets' offense.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills got rid of their best cornerback.
They're going to have one of the worst secondaries in football.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll see what happens there. I mean, I'm fine with playing him. I rely heavily on, the lines when looking at streaming defenses. I generally feel like the bigger the line, then you at least have a decent chance of the defense working out. So I'd be okay with playing the Bills, but I don't think it's necessary. I'd rather be playing Pittsburgh's defense, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, or the Rams. Go out and get the Rams. They're a great defense player, I think, this week.
I'm playing Atlanta over the Bills defense in a couple leagues too. So I mean, there are other options that I think you and I like a lot more. Do you have anything else on this game? I mean, obviously, we talked briefly about McCoy and how he's probably just going to murder everything. The only other thing that I would say is with the Bills trading away Jonathan Williams to the Denver Broncos, which muddies that situation further, Mike Tolbert is now the backup running back for the Bills. Just something to keep in mind. That is very true. He is the backup running back. I don't get why
he
why
would
the
be
Bills did that.
Yeah, me neither. But I'm just saying potential like McCoy handcuffs, since we've seen him have some success in the league before.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. All right, who you got for this one?
I'll take the Bills.
Just for fun, I'm going to take the Jets. All right, let's move on to Atlanta, Chicago. Atlanta's a 6-point favorite here. Over-under is 51. So, again, a pretty high-scoring game. Atlanta with almost a touchdown favorite. Talk to me about the Bears first, because I feel like Atlanta's pretty straightforward here, whereas the Bears, there's a little bit of intrigue. So talk to me about your opinions on the Bears with respect to their wide receivers now that Cam Meredith is out, and then also, I guess, the Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen type situation.
Yeah, so I'll actually start with the backfield, and I'll say that every Jordan Howard fan, I mean, you watch all your fantasy guys anyway, but should really want to watch this game closely, because hopefully within the first half, all of your fears about drafting him will be either justified, well, hopefully they won't be justified, or completely put to rest, because we're hoping that the big knock on Jordan Howard all preseason is that, the team is going to be bad, and you're like, the team was bad last year because I own Jordan Howard, and I owned him last year as well. So the team was always bad. Mike Glennon comes in, it's worse than Jay Cutler, which I don't think is necessarily true, but who got hurt last year too? Who played quarterback for them at the end of the year? Matt Barkley some games for a while. So yeah, Barkley. So I think if anything, Mike Glennon is an upgrade from Matt Barkley, I guess. But just hopefully they feed the shit out of him, and I'm sure Tariq Cohen is going to work his way in. But I'm just hoping to just see Jordan Howard, even if they're getting blown out, just getting fed constantly. To talk about the receivers for a little bit, I don't know if you have anything to say on Jordan Howard.
No, I'm cool on that. You pretty much summed it up.
Yeah, no real analysis. You shouldn't be starting any of these Bears wide receivers, I don't think, right away at all. But it's just going to be our first good look, at least in a while, of Kevin White, Kendall Wright, who I think is actually. I have a question for you at the end, but I'll spoil one of my picks. I think after week 1, Kendall Wright will be one of the most added players in fantasy.
I think you're probably right on the dot with that one because they're going to need to throw it to someone, and I don't think Kevin White's good.
Right.
So I mean, like Deontay Thompson is the guy getting run ahead of him, but like whatever on Deontay Thompson. Kendall Wright's a guy who had some sort of cachet at a point in his career, and he's also back with the offensive coordinator that he saw the most success with in Chicago. So that's, same offensive coordinator who during Kendall Wright's fantasy relevant years was in Tennessee. So I think there's definitely a reason to think that Kendall Wright will be one of the top waiver wire pickups after this week.
Yeah, this offense, possibly even apart from Jordan Howard, is going to have fantasy value somewhere in it, and just something to definitely keep note of as early as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Atlanta? Like I said, I think it's pretty straightforward, but talk me through, I guess one of the questions would be, is Tevin Coleman startable as their second running back week 1?
I think he is, depending on your team construction. Like, I feel like a lot of zero running back strategists ended up with Tevin Coleman this year.
Yes.
And I feel like those guys also ended up and I know you're a huge advocate of that strategy. You use it a lot. And those guys also ended up with Darren McFadden's and Jacquizz Rodgers and guys like that, or even Doug Martin's in that middle pack or something like that. I think Atlanta should win this game handily. I mean, anybody should. It's week 1. We don't really know what either team is going to look like, but they're going to run the ball a lot. We saw him get work in close games. This should be a slight blowout. I think if you're cornered into a situation, he might have one of the higher floors of those running back 30s going into week 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And then with the wide receivers, obviously you're starting Julio. Do you have any interest in playing Sanu or Gabriel? And then do you think if you are someone like me who went with Austin Hooper in a couple of leagues, do you think that's okay to just roll him right out there week 1?
Yeah, I think Austin Hooper, I definitely would. The Bears were bad against the tight end last year, and there's just no reason to think that it's going to go otherwise. Austin Hooper, in my opinion, would be their second receiving option other than the backfield, if you want to include them. So I'm fine with rolling Hooper out there. If you drafted him, just start him. And as far as Sanu and Gabriel, I would say week 1, don't play them. Maybe in daily, if you want to do some crazy stack and they're cheap, would be the only thing that I'm thinking of, because you drafted a better team than Sanu and Gabriel.
Very true. I agree with everything you said there. Who are you taking?
All right, podcast over.
Not quite yet. Yet.
I'm taking Atlanta.
Yeah, me too. Let's move on to Baltimore at Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a 3-point favorite here. The over-under is 42.5. That is pretty low. Basically, on the Cincinnati side, I think the most interesting thing is Joe Mixon's number 3 on the depth chart. Not that wasn't expected, but how do you parse this situation week 1 in a game where theoretically you would want to play a Bengals running back? Do you have any interest in starting any of the 3 week 1?
So I think if I was going to start someone, it would be Joe Mixon. But so here's a comparison I'll draw. I think that it's possible that Joe Mixon has a better year than Kareem Hunt overall and is more of a dominant running back in week 6. But I'm more confident playing Kareem Hunt, who's in a similar situation with Joe Mixon right now with a 3 running back set that's going to be a committee with the rookie you've never seen before. I'd be more confident starting Kareem Hunt than Joe Mixon. I'd be more confident starting I was going to say Terrence West, and then I kind of took it back. I don't know. I'd be more Tevin Coleman. I'd rather start Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, me too. I think Mixon is a guy who by week 6 or week 7 is likely going to be an every week starter for you, because he'll have earned the coach's trust and kind of force them to play him because he's so much better than Hill. But not week 1. I just don't know that you can really do that. So if you can avoid starting Mixon, I would say avoid starting Mixon. And
as far as these backfield, oh sorry, but I was just going to say one last thing.
No,
as far as these backfields that are crowded, especially with 3 guys, Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard are definitely the best competition that any other running back has, especially a rookie running back. Those guys were both successful starters for that offense at one point in their careers. So It's a lot different than going up against C.J. Spiller and Charkandrick West for playing time.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the Bengals passing game? You talked about Dalton as a possible streamer. Obviously, A.J. Green is a guy, you're starting. John Ross is going to miss week 1 and probably week 2. So I guess outside of that, you've got Eifert, you've got LaFell, you've got Tyler Boyd. What's your interest or intrigue in any of these guys?
Yeah, only guys I'm playing in the passing game are Green, Eifert, and maybe Dalton if you're in the situation. I am a little intrigued by Brandon LaFell this year, not necessarily for week 1, but I think that he's going to be a wide receiver, bye week fill-in sometime throughout the year. I think he'll have like a sneaky 750-yard 4-touchdown season or something.
Sure, I could definitely see that. It's also worth saying that if you drafted John Ross, because I know he was going in some drafts, if you did draft John Ross, just drop him. Even when he comes back, he's more important to that team's offense as a total than he will be to your fantasy team. And then on the Baltimore side of the ball, talk to me about the backfield. You mentioned Terrence West a little bit. So West, Woodhead, where are you looking this week?
Woodhead makes sense, especially in PPR formats, but he's coming off that injury still. He's a receiving back. Does he have the Sproles magic pretty much? Because he's on the wrong side of 30 now. And it's just, I don't know if I don't own him in any league, but if I did, I would be very hesitant to roll him out there. I think I'd be more inclined to start Terrence West just because these AFC North games are usually like ground and pound, and the Vegas line or the over-under even sort of, echoes that sentiment.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you feel about rolling Woodhead out week 1? I think Macklin is fine, and that may be the other than Terrence West and Woodhead, the only Ravens I'm thinking about.
Yeah, Macklin's certainly the only wide receiver that I'm looking at to play week 1. With West and Woodhead, I'd rather be starting West this week. With Woodhead coming off that injury, I don't know what's going to happen there. I'd much rather be trying to find any excuse to not play him week 1. So if you have to play him, you have to play him, but hopefully you don't have to. Hopefully you can take a week to see how that offense, is going to use him, or how that offense might have a vision of the backfield going forward. It'll be interesting to see too. Buck Allen is still there. Is he going to get involved as a passing down back at all with Woodhead coming off the injury? We really don't know. So I'm doing everything I can to not start him.
Yep, I agree.
All right, who you got in this game?
I'll take Baltimore.
I'll take the Bengals there. All right, let's move to the other AFC North matchup, Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Pittsburgh is a 9-point favorite. The over-under is 46.5. I think that's the highest spread of the week. I could be wrong there. Talk to me about the Steelers.
Definitely got to go all in on the Steelers would be your first thought. And I believe that's true as far as Martavis Bryant, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell, obviously. But Ben Roethlisberger has been a very hyped-up streamer for this week, or at least someone that was drafted in the 15th round of drafts just to start week 1 and sort of start that streamer rolling, or the domino fall. But Roethlisberger's home road splits have actually been trending very downward over the last few years. Mm-hmm. And last year Ben only averaged 13.8 points against Cleveland. I think, what was the one stat I had? I believe he has only thrown for more than 2 touchdowns against the Browns in 2 of their last 12 meetings.
I did not know that.
Which is kind of interesting. I want to double check that stat and make sure that's correct while I ask you your thoughts on it. But
it would make
Roethlisberger
sense.
is not as Sorry, go on.
Oh no, go ahead. That's all I had.
No, I was done. I was just sort of agreeing with you. Yeah, no, that stat is correct. Roethlisberger, they just run the ball against him. Roethlisberger doesn't really throw a lot, pretty much. That's pretty much what it boils down to. He just doesn't sling the ball that much.
Yeah, I mean, Le'Veon Bell's the best play of the week, and that should be echoed in all of your daily lineups as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Roethlisberger, I think, is an okay start. I don't think he's the best start. I don't think there's particularly a reason to start him, but I would be playing Brown. I would be playing Bryant. And obviously I'd be playing Bell as well.
Ooh, another revenge game, by the way. Joe Hayden, my dude Joe Hayden.
That is true. He's
signed with the
with the
Steelers.
Steelers now. Yeah, that's crazy. He's also been pretty bad the past 2 years.
Yeah, I know. I always just dubbed him the next Revis, and then it was just so wrong.
Yeah, I mean, he was great for a couple of years there, but what can you do? You put in our notes here, are you playing any Brown other than Crowell? So I'll ask you, are you playing any Brown other than Crowell?
I'm going to say no, but I would word it this way in saying what we just said about the Bears offense and how it's a wait and see and we think there's fantasy potential there. I consider this the same situation on steroids. You know, like I'm not willing to buy in week 1, and Kenny Britt and Corey Coleman have huge upside. Duke Johnson, even DeShone Kizer is extremely intriguing, and I think that those guys could be very fantasy viable. I'm not starting it in this game this week, though I could be wrong as far as garbage time for the wide receivers, but where will it go? I want to wait and see.
I didn't do it, and I really wanted to, and I couldn't. I just didn't have the balls to. I bitched out. In at least one league, I wanted to not take a quarterback until the very last round, in which I drafted DeShone Kizer.
Wow.
And I didn't do it, and I'm like, because I think he's going to, even if the team is bad and he's not necessarily a great passer, this is a guy who had 18 rushing touchdowns in college. This is a guy who can run the ball out of the pocket. So that's huge in fantasy. I think Kizer's a very interesting guy. Like you said, I don't think I'd be doing it this week. I will be doing it in daily in tournaments, not in cash games certainly. But in tournaments, you better bet your bottom dollar that I will be stacking DeShone Kizer and Corey Coleman this week.
Oh, this week, yeah.
Oh yeah, man! Right off the bat, because
cool.
you know I don't think it'll be terribly highly owned. So yeah, that's going to be a move for me definitely.
So,
but I think you're.
Sorry, go and finish your thought. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say a quick side note was you would be very proud. My mom had her first ever fantasy draft this past weekend. And it was one of those leagues that were all over the place. Like a defense won the 4th round. Some teams took 3 tight ends. And I helped her in the beginning, like the first few rounds. She would ask me about some guys. And then when she sent me the board at the end, she took Mariota in the 10th, and then with her very last pick after kicker defense, took DeShone Kizer. And I was like,
wow.
I was like, yo, Walsh will love that. That's like something I could see Walsh really doing.
A woman after my own heart, dude. That's honestly a strategy that like I was very much about going into drafts. So that is really awesome.
Yeah, I don't think she had any sort of logic behind it, but I was very proud.
Oh yeah, I don't know if the process was there, but the result's great. But yeah, all right. I think that'll pretty much do it for the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game. I'm taking the Steelers here.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Steelers too. Also because not fantasy related, but this happened today. Myles Garrett actually rolled his ankle pretty bad and he's questionable for week 1, which just
it sucks.
Yeah, that's just shitty.
Yeah, for sure. Well, best of luck in your recovery, Myles. Hopefully you're back soon. Let's move on to Arizona, Detroit. Arizona is a 2-point favorite. The over-under there is 48. I like playing players in games like this because the Vegas spread indicates it's going to be relatively high scoring and close. And what that means is teams will be still trying to get the balls to their best players throughout the 4th quarter and in important moments. Let's start on Detroit's side. The running back situation is very interesting with Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick, and then I don't know, maybe Zach Zenner getting some goal line carries. We'll see. How do you think that backfield splits up this week?
So I'm very intrigued to see. I'm not really sure. One thing I am relatively sure of is that I think Theo Riddick is going to get 8 or 9 targets minimum, probably like 10 total touches at least. I'm really interested to see what Amir Abdullah's role is because they've been talking a lot of smack in the offseason about how he's back and he's healthy, and we think that he's a feature back and all this shit. And, we know the Lions love to throw, and they just signed Stafford huge too. So I'm very, very interested to see what Amir Abdullah's role is. Theo Riddick's role is carved out. It'll always be there as long as he's healthy. We know that, right? You agree with that, I assume?
Yes.
Very, very just interested to see where Abdullah goes because I own none of him because I'm terrified and I don't trust it. And I'm interested to see if I'm wrong.
I have a decent amount of him, and I'm pretty high on him. I think he goes from being a running back that you're not sure if you can start him every week to an every week startable running back if one, he can get 3 to 4 targets a game, and then two, if he gets at least half of the goal line carries. So that's really what I'm looking for here. I think even if he doesn't get those things, he's a guy who can break off a big play at any point. I'm going to start him in the 2 leagues that I drafted him in this week.
Okay. I was going to ask you him or Joe Mixon, and I think that answers it right there.
Yeah, it's Abdullah for me.
Cool.
You spoke about the Detroit passing game. We know Arizona's secondary is good, anchored by Patrick Peterson. How do you think that plays out for the receivers? And then is there any interest in Stafford this week?
I wouldn't think Stafford this week. He should be a popular streamer going forward, but he's sort of the same with those home road splits, I feel like. So he's great at home. They are at home against the Cardinals, but like you said, that secondary is great. You know, I hate Golden Tate. I'm off the entire receiving core of the Lions this year, apart from, Kenny Golladay, who has his value, and Eric Ebron. But I want none of that. And Golden Tate was drafted as a wide receiver 3. I think it's a bad matchup. You've heard me quote stats about when Theo Riddick is healthy and on the field, how Golden Tate completely blows. I want none of it. Ebron and Abdullah and Riddick, if you have to, are the only ones that I'm starting on the Lions.
I'm very with you on that. I don't like Tate this week. Marvin Jones is likely going to be covered by Patrick Peterson. While he's on the outside, Marvin Jones is only a guy I want to play in good matchups, certainly not with the best cornerback in the league on him. The rest of the guys, I don't see any need to, you don't need to play Golladay. Ebron, if you drafted him, sure. I'm right there with you on that. Let's talk about Arizona. David Johnson obviously is incredible and a must play. And we both kind of mentioned Carson Palmer as a potential streamer for this week. So what do you expect for Carson Palmer in this game? And then what wide receivers are you looking at to really produce?
So yeah, I'm really down with Carson Palmer as an early season streamer. His first few weeks are just a great schedule. I'm not really sure of what they are going forward, but this is a great matchup. I think Palmer's going to have a good game. The only receiver I'm starting is Fitzgerald. I feel like this is typically the case with the Cardinals' secondary wide receivers, where there will be value there, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's 2 touchdowns among them. But it's a wait-and-see game as well. Larry Fitzgerald's the only thing you can count on. I do think it's possible that Carson Palmer throws 3, maybe even 4 touchdowns. It's possible. That I would weight that in his projections if I did them for the week. But I just wouldn't feel confident about starting either of the Browns, J.J. Nelson, any of those guys until we sort of see what their role is, if it's going to be any different. And if it's the same as it's been for their careers, it's going to be pretty meh. And borderline wide receiver 3 and bye week guys for me. That's what I view them as.
Yeah, I'm right with you there. I think Fitzgerald is quietly one of the best plays in the league. He plays out of the slot most of the time. Quandre Diggs is their slot cornerback, and he kind of sucks. So easy matchup to attack. Larry Fitzgerald also the past couple of years has come out like a ball of fire and then kind of faded. Wouldn't be surprised to see that again, like a 10 catch, 100-yard, 2 touchdown performance from Larry Fitzgerald, I think is well within the realm of possibilities this year. So if you drafted him, start him, because this is the time of year to do it.
I agree.
All right, who are you taking in this one?
I'm going to take Arizona.
Me too.
I'm picking all the favorites. It sucks, but whatever.
We've flipped on a couple of them.
True.
Plus, why would you want to take Detroit there?
You're right.
All right, Jacksonville and Houston. Houston's a 5.5-point favorite. The over/under is a measly 39.5 points. The game is going to be played in Houston. Obviously, the events of Hurricane Harvey down there. They're playing the game there. J.J. Watt just raised like $18 million or some crazy shit for the city. That'll be pretty cool. That'll be very cool to watch.
Yeah. If you went back in time 15 years ago and you said to someone on the street, this Sunday, Jacksonville Jaguars and Houston Texans is the must-see football kickoff of the week. Some dude's like, what the hell are you talking about, dude?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no,
even 2 years ago, if I said that.
Yeah, and it's still, it's not because of the game by any means, because the game is going to suck. But you know, it will be very cool to see the fan reaction there with such an emotional experience and emotional time. So anyway, let's get into the game. Where the fuck to start? I guess let's start in Jacksonville with Leonard Fournette. You know, a guy whose draft position has really varied a lot. What do you expect from Fournette in this week 1 matchup?
So essentially what the Jaguars are trying to do this season that they've said is they want to ground and pound. They picture that they want to win games 14-10. What I want to say real quick, this is stupid to cut in on Fournette, but Jaguars defense, I think, is a better play than the Bills defense against the Jets. The Jacksonville defense is going to be a streamable defense this year. They added Calais Campbell, Barry Church, and AJ Bowie, as you pronounce it? Bowie? I don't know. But they've been stacking up that D. We know that it was coming around a little bit last year. Jacksonville Jaguars defense will finally be a thing. But anyway, they want to ground and pound the ball. They think their defense is up to the task of shutting down at least divisional opponents to 2 or 3 scores from what I've read. And you know, if that's their plan, then they anticipate giving Leonard Fournette the ball like 20+ times and making him one of those old, you know, workhorses. I think this game will be a perfect example to dish that strategy out, and we're going to know relatively early on what this offense is going to look like, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Fournette, it seems like Marrone is willing to make him a running back where, like, even when they're down in like the 4th, he's going to be like feeding him the ball for 3-yard dives and stuff. But you know, it is what it is. It'll be an interesting game to kind of see Fournette's prognosis. Fucking, I don't know how he's gonna fucking do the rest of the year. You know. So with that being said, do you have any interest in starting Allen Robinson if you drafted him?
No, not particularly. I was really off Allen Robinson in the preseason. That Houston defense is obviously borderline elite. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not about it. Not about it.
Yeah, I think there's 3 people to start in this game, and it's Fournette, and then we're going to go to the Texans, Hopkins, and maybe Lamar Miller, but we'll get there in a second.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just get there right now. Talk to me about the Texans side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just a clear-cut situation, I would think. If you drafted DeAndre Hopkins, he's your wide receiver 1 or 2. You're going to roll him out there. Lamar Miller, I don't think you're going to feel great about. But, again, if you bought in on him, he's probably your running back 1 or 2. So you just got to pretty much roll it out there. I don't really know what to expect. If this is a ground-and-pound type game, the game script could work pretty well for both of those guys, I think. I mean, Hopkins should probably get his Tom Savage targets. So yeah, I'm about those guys. I think it's more of a lower ceiling than other matchups, but sort of guys that are logical plays.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you on that. Who are you taking in this one?
I'm going to take the Jaguars.
Okay. I'm going to take Houston, I guess. Yeah, I'm going to take Houston. Let's see. Tampa Bay, Miami was canceled, as we mentioned earlier. Don't play any of your players from that. So let's move right into Oakland and Tennessee. I think this is going to be a really fun game. I'm really excited for it. Tennessee's a 2.5-point favorite. The over-under is 50.5. So nice high over, nice close game. Seems to be conducive to Carr and Mariota both chucking the shit out of the ball. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. That's what I hope it is. It's great.
All right. So with that
sorry, go on. Yeah.
I was going to say, with that being said, talk to me a little bit about the Titans offense and what do you expect here in terms of, you know, their wide receivers, Mariota, Delaney Walker is a guy who, you know, should be probably played, and then their backfield as well.
Yeah, so you're going to roll DeMarco Murray and Delaney Walker out there. The number one thing that I'm curious about is Derrick Henry and what his role on this offense is, because last year it was more of a clear-cut handcuff situation. Everyone knows that he's extremely talented. But if I'm not mistaken, apart from Tevin Coleman, he's probably the the next highest running back drafted on the same team as a top 10 running back that's going. Does that make sense?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Of those top 10, yeah. And he's going pretty high. Last I checked, it was earlier today, but he was going as running back 31, which is bordering flex territory. And, you should still feel confident in DeMarco. Roll him out there this week. Delaney Walker. I don't necessarily hate if you're strong-armed into a Rashard Matthews situation with Mike Evans or like Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker not playing. If you're kind of stuck and have to play him, he could be one of the better matchups, at least out of this pool of wide receiver fours you may have. But other than that, that's and Mariota, obviously, he's a quarterback one pretty much every week. I would assume borderline matchup proof. So I'm pretty pumped on this game. I think it's going to be chock full of O.
Yeah, lots and lots of O. Let's see here. So the Corey Davis situation, it says I guess he's going to be on a snap count.
Okay,
but that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on going forward as well. On the Raiders side of the ball, what do you expect out of big offseason acquisition Marshawn Lynch?
See, I have no idea. I really don't. I was going to defer to you for this because that was part of why he is the biggest draft enigma to me going into this year, I would say, of anybody. And that was why I was saying he was one of the guys that I own zero share of and wish that I did, because I just realized I didn't have the balls to buy in on him. And he could go beast mode. He could be an injury risk every week. He could be one of the most frustrating guys in fantasy. I have no fucking idea.
That's fair. So the way I'm looking at Marshawn this year is I think the Raiders are going to score 3 to 4 touchdowns in this game. I think if the Raiders score 4 touchdowns, it is extremely unlikely that none of those go to Marshawn Lynch. So I'm trying to play Marshawn Lynch this week.
I don't think that could have been reasoned better or more succinct.
Fair enough.
Marshawn, I'm going to trade for him now.
He's not going to be a heavy volume guy. I don't think. Like, you're not going to see many games where he goes over 25 or even 20 touches. Just because why would they? Do that to a guy who is a little bit older and coming back off retirement. And two, their other running backs are pretty good. But in a game where the Raiders score 4 touchdowns, it's very unlikely that Marshawn doesn't score a touchdown. So I'm very about that this week.
Hells yeah.
Passing game, I think, with the Raiders is extremely easy in that you're playing Cooper and Crabtree.
So, yeah. But I want to ask you, I have Jared Cook. That was like the 13th overall tight end drafted. I was going to wait to ask this question, but you know what? I won't bring it up. But is Jared Cook startable?
Not for me.
Okay. What about if it was like a 14-team league?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, because that's 20 tight ends, so I guess that's not really, helping my cause. But we'll get to my burning question later on in the game.
Okay. Yeah, that works. Let's pick this one. Who you got?
Ooh, man. If I wasn't with you, I'd really want to take the Titans. I'm going to take the Titans. You suck.
Yeah,
I'm awesome.
I'm going to take the Raiders. I'm not wildly confident about it, though. I think this will be a really fun game. Probably, I'm biased, but I think this is probably going to be the most fun game to watch this week, just because of the 2 young quarterbacks really going at it.
But I can see the rollouts already.
Oh yeah, totally, dude. And like both secondaries just suck. So, this is gonna be a lot of yards through the air. All right, so we do have the rest of the games coming up. Before we do that, though, we are going to get a quick word from our friends at Bench Boss. All right, guys, we're back. That was Bench Boss, again, formerly ViewPick. Oh, shit.
Sorry, I was going to say you want to just hold the live break for a second, and I got to piss real bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll just have Shrek edit that out.
Totally. I can just come back in on that.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Cool.
All right, I'll get back into it. All right, guys, we're back. That was our friends at Bench Boss again. That's formerly ViewPick. Make sure you go and check them out. Rogers, let's get right back into these games, finish these up, and get to the reader questions. So the next game we want to talk about here, another one that makings of a shootout, Philadelphia and Washington. Philadelphia is currently a 1-point favorite. The over-under is 48 points. This is another fun one for me. Talk to me first about Philadelphia's offense, starting with the pass game and what you maybe expect out of that, who to start.
So what I was going to say, the only thing that may rival the more fun game than Raiders-Titans could be this one, because this is always a good game, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really excited to see Carson Wentz take a step forward. I think that is going to happen. I know that you do as well. Maybe even if he's got some, bad moments in this game, the Redskins defense is underratedly good, I think, as it has been in past years. As far as what to expect from their offense, the backfield I don't want to touch other than two guys. So two guys that I think that are going to have a good game this in this one will be Darren Sproles and Zach Ertz, and I think possibly Torrey Smith, but not enough to start. So if I own Darren Sproles and I'm in a situation where I have to, though you probably aren't, he's going so late in drafts, I think that he's going to have a big week in a shootout style sort of game. The reason I feel this way is Smallwood obviously could have a role going forward. Some people took late flyers on him. Nothing that you're touching week one. Blunt, people have been considering it. Some people have drafted him as such. And you got to let that shit shake out and watch it before you put that guy on your roster. I think that should just be a public service announcement to everybody. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sproles is going to finish with more fantasy points this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the reason why I think that Zach Ertz is going to have a big week is because, and I talked to you about this earlier, Walsh, is that everybody's really pumped on Alshon Jeffrey, and I am too for the year, especially the Eagles probably are as well, since they traded away Jordan Matthews, who was their number one for the past couple of years. But Josh Norman, the Redskins came out today. Jay Gruden said that Josh Norman is going to be shadowing Alshon Jeffrey all game. And last year, I know he was a rookie, but Carson Wentz only targeted a Josh Norman covered receiver one time in the two games that the Eagles and the Redskins played each other last year. So I think it's a possibility that Alshon Jeffrey gets completely shut down. And if that's the case, Ertz and Sproles should have huge, huge weeks, and possibly even Torrey Smith, but we're still going to have to see how him and Nelson Aguilar shake up as far as their roles as the secondary receiver. But Sproles and Ertz, I think, are playable this week.
That makes a shitload of sense, and also makes me want to run a Wentz Sproles Ertz stack in daily just to be contrarian.
Yeah.
Now, how you were saying with Alshon, do you think so? If for example, if hypothetically you drafted Alshon to be a starter, which I may or may not have done in like 80% of my leagues, would the Josh Norman thing be enough to make you think twice about actually starting him? And maybe if you see a bench receiver with a better matchup, would you consider putting him in, or is it still just, hey, you drafted him, you're starting him?
So I believe one of these leagues you're playing me week one with Alshon Jeffrey. So yes. What I will say is that true? Yes, I believe so.
I think so.
No, either way, I would say yes if you were playing against me. But I think that honestly, I would sit Alshon Jeffrey. I think the Josh Norman thing is enough. I think the likelihood is if you took Alshon Jeffrey in the 4th or 5th round, he's usually going, I feel like, as a wide receiver 3 or 4. And I think that there's possibilities to sub in a better matchup with just better situations. I mean, I definitely think it's enough. Josh Norman is a seasoned veteran with this team now, and Alshon Jeffrey is new. Carson Wentz is young. I just think that he's got the mental advantage. He's got obviously the physical advantage since Carson Wentz won't throw at him. And I just think that's enough to, in their first game together, not think that Wentz is going to now all of a sudden start challenging Josh Norman.
Okay. I think that's a very fair take. I'm going to have some interesting decisions in some leagues this week.
Yeah.
In terms of the Washington offense, Kirk Cousins, I think, is fine in this game. Terrell Pryor, you drafted to be a starter. The interesting guys here for me are Jamison Crowder and then also Rob Kelly at running back. So do you think either of those guys are, like in Crowder's case, like a wide receiver 3 or like a flex, or Rob Kelly maybe even like a starting running back or a flex worthy?
I think that it's possible. Rob Kelly, as far as we know, should be their bell cow in this game. I mean, he should get, I would think, 15 plus touches. What he will do with that, I'm not sure, because the Eagles also kind of have a sneaky decent defense. I think you're rolling Crowder out no better as a wide receiver 4 this week.
Okay.
And that would be bordering flex, possible better options. Of the two, I'd rather play Crowder.
Okay.
Rob Kelly, if you have to, again, I feel like Rob Kelly was either your running back 4 and you have better options, or he was in those lump zero running back guys. And if that's the case, you might have taken a McFadden, a Jacquizz Rodgers, or any of these guys that have questionable roles now week 1. And Rob Kelly is a safer play. I think he's got a decent floor this week. Would you say? Definitely a better floor than Crowder.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I have to end up starting Rob Kelly in at least one league. And I feel fine about it, I think. And another thing with him, like you said, probably at least 15 touches. He's going to be that guy that gets those ground touches for the most part. I think less so than Marshawn, but similar sort of situation with what I was saying before. The Redskins are going to score 3 or 4 touchdowns in this game, most likely. If the Redskins score 4 touchdowns, I would be surprised. Not as surprised, but I would still be surprised if Rob Kelly doesn't get a single one of those touchdowns. So I think he's a fine play this week.
Yeah, I would say, depending on how your team is constructed too, if you have like studs at other spots like an Antonio Brown or who, like, any of those top guys at their positions, Rob Kelly, if I had to make a bet, I would say that he scores between 7 and 15 points this week. And I think that's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
That could be totally enough depending on your team. A couple guys hit home runs, and all of a sudden that's exactly what you needed from your running back too.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very, very good point. The one guy we haven't mentioned in this game is Jordan Reed. I think you're obviously playing him, right?
For sure.
All right, cool. Who you got in this one?
I will take the Redskins.
Okay, I'm going to take Philly.
Cool.
Let's move on to Indianapolis and the Rams. So we've got LA as a 3.5-point favorite. That switched when it was announced that Luck would not be playing. I was lucky enough to get in before that when the Rams were a 3-point dog and get money on the Rams just on the hunch that Luck wouldn't play. So that was nice. And then the over-under here is 41.5. So low scoring. Not a ton going on. For Indianapolis, Scott Tolzien is going to start. And for a frame of reference, Scott Tolzien has been with this team, and this past weekend, the Colts traded for Jacoby Brissett to compete with him. So that's not exactly the highest vote of confidence in Scott Tolzien. How comfortable are you starting any Colts?
So I'll say this too, is that one good thing about Andrew Luck, if you did own him, he was activated off the PUP list, but then was immediately ruled out for week 1. So you should hope now that the 6-week absence is probably a little too high. And if you drafted him at some point, it might be more like 2 or 3 weeks that you're missing him instead of 6, because then they would have just left him off the PUP, right? Or on the PUP. So another thing I want to say about this, Scott Tolzien has a soft spot in my heart because he used to be a Packer. And he had an epic rushing touchdown for the Packers that year that Rodgers got hurt. Go look that up on YouTube. But as far as that, the only Colt that I'm willing to start is T.Y. Hilton. And I'm in a very downgraded sense. So I'm saying you bump him down to that Jamison Crowder range. Jamison Crowder and T.Y. Hilton is a toss-up for me where I may lean towards Crowder. But they're going to throw the ball. They should be down. They should be throwing the ball. So, for instance, I'm looking at guys like this. And here's the group, and I'll get your take on this in a second, Walsh, of guys that I'm sort of putting T.Y. Hilton down on the week 1 starters. Sammy Watkins, Jeremy Maclin, that range. Now like Golden Tate, Pierre Garcon. So working off that, Walsh, that's the range that I have him in. I'll roll those names back at you. What do you prefer, T.Y. Hilton, little comparison game here? T.Y. Hilton this week or Sammy Watkins on the other side of the ball?
Ooh, T.Y. Hilton.
Not by a lot, though, right? Because that's sort of the range I'm throwing him in now. I'm saying Jamison Crowder or T.Y. Hilton.
Crowder.
Okay, see, I agree with that. Golden Tate or T.Y. Hilton.
T.Y. Hilton.
And then the last one I'll say is Pierre Garçon.
Pierre Garçon.
And Pierre Garçon's getting drafted 5 to 6 rounds behind him. So if you have better options, don't shy away from sitting T.Y. Hilton, because the difference, even if he catches a touchdown, his ceiling drops, and that's the biggest, most attractive quality about T.Y. Hilton is his enormous ceiling. And it just shrinks so much in this situation that don't be afraid to make a higher floor, safer start in place of this, especially week 1.
Absolutely. His splits with and without Luck are bad.
I think I read somewhere that his per game average last year was good for wide receiver 43 or 44 or something like that when Luck was not playing. So
yeah, that sounds about right, and that's not what you want when in your week 1 starter and second or third round pick. On the Rams side of the ball, we talked a little bit about Sammy Watkins and that range that we kind of think he's in for this week. I like Todd Gurley a lot. What do you think about Gurley this week?
Yeah, the matchup is ideal. So, I mean, where he's being drafted, it totally makes sense, and you definitely shouldn't shy away from it in what could be the best matchup of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anyone on the Rams that you want to start? Going through there, like any Cooper Kupp or something like that?
No, not at all. Especially in season long, for sure.
All right, fair enough. It'll be interesting to see. I think a lot of people might get high hopes for the Rams offense after this week. Keep in mind, this is the fucking Colts they're playing.
Yeah. People have said that Jared Goff has looked pretty decent as of late. I've read.
Yeah, no, he's looked good in preseason, and they do have Sean McVay, the new play caller, so that should make a difference.
You're right, though. This is not the game that puts you over the edge on them.
No, this is, if they have a good game this game, you say good, you should have had a good game this game.
Yeah, exactly. Good call.
So who are you taking here?
I'm going to take the Rams, definitely.
Me too. Let's move on to Seattle Green Bay. This over under is higher than I would have expected, but maybe I shouldn't have expected it to be lower. So right now Green Bay is a 3-point favorite. The over under is 51. So we're looking at another one of these games where just lots and lots of offense, lots of fantasy production. Now talk to me. We'll start with the Seattle backfield because there's a lot of confusion around here with Rawls potentially missing. Then Lacy would maybe be the starter there. What do you think about the Seattle backfield?
I think that Pete Carroll is enough of a dick to just let Rawls sit because he's questionable with that ankle and just give Eddie Lacy the ball 25 to 30 times. And also, I feel like as a Packer fan, I do think that Seattle wins this game. And I just think that's the way it's going to shake out. I think Eddie Lacy's going to have a huge week. Not something I'm willing to bank on, but it's a good matchup for whichever running back gets the lead. And if Thomas Rawls is out, I think Eddie Lacy is potentially flex-worthy, especially with C.J. Prosise being banged up and everything else going. Chris Carson is kind of a right. That's his first name, Chris. Chris Carson.
Which one is this?
The fourth running back on the Seahawks. Chris Carson, I believe it is. Yeah, okay. It's Chris Carson. Okay. And people are saying that he may fill in that backup running back role if Rawls doesn't go. Don't bank on it, but I think that this will be a shitty week to try and decide how this shit's going to shake out because I think it's going to be all over the place to start. But I think by week 7, however it's going to go, is going to be a little more clear cut.
Fair enough. And yeah, just keep your eye on the inactives. Hopefully you're not in a situation where you need to start any of these guys, but maybe you are. If you are, keep your eye on the inactives there. In the pass game, Russell Wilson is a must start. Doug Baldwin's a must start.
Jimmy Graham.
Richard. Yeah, Jimmy Graham. Is Lockett going to play? I'm not sure.
I actually did not see. I just saw that he was questionable, and I didn't investigate any further.
Okay, because I know Paul Richardson has been running with the starters. Wouldn't make the worst punt play in the world. Not that anyone really drafted him. Oh, Tyler Lockett is also practicing in full.
Okay.
That being said, Richardson was running with the starters, so you shouldn't really be playing either of those guys week one. But keep an eye on the snaps. Keep an eye on who Russell Wilson is targeting, because if Wilson is as good as a lot of us think he will be this year, there's going to be enough production to go around to another wide receiver.
Right.
On the Green Bay side of the ball, talk to me about the Packers, including that backfield and just what you expect out of everyone this week.
Yeah, just their O-line is hurt again. Their secondary is hurt again for the most part. They just made a couple different defensive signings, so I'm hoping this game we can hang with them defensively a little bit more. Seattle. You got to play Rodgers. He's had some duds. It sucks for NFL ratings that we have to play the Seahawks like the first 1 or 2 weeks. I feel like every single season, right? Does that feel that way to you? Packers, Seahawks, like a thing?
Yeah, definitely.
And, you got to roll Rodgers out there. I'm still confident in Jordy, obviously, and Devontae Adams. I think those three are borderline matchup proof. I mean, if you're not going to sit him against the Seahawks, who are you going to sit him against? Ty Montgomery, I would kind of lump into that as well. Definitely temper expectations, though. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers rolled out 12 fantasy points this week, would you be that incredibly surprised?
I would be very surprised, yeah.
Okay. Because I mean, I don't think it's likely, but it's happened. When their offense has been just as good. The Seahawks have been adding everybody on defense. I think they have like 8 Pro Bowlers on their defense right now. I'm optimistic, but hesitantly optimistic, if that makes sense. You got to roll those guys out there, though. They're matchup proof, don't you agree? I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my quiet takes this year too is that I think the Seahawks defense this is going to be the year where we see them. Kind of stop being this vaunted defensive unit that we've come to regard them as much, and maybe come back to earth a little bit.
That's interesting. Not a bad take, but it might be one of their better years on paper.
Yeah, I think the cornerbacks aren't going to be that good this year.
Cool.
I think Sherman is on the downslope of his career, which I think is going to make a big difference in that defense. So. We'll see what happens, but yeah, it's more of a hunch than anything else. So I don't want to put too much into it, but yeah, I expect the Packers to put up a lot of points here.
So I want to ask you, Walsh, before we move on, if Rawls is ruled out like Saturday or early Sunday, are you cool starting Lacy in the flex compared to some of these other guys?
Yeah, I think I am. I mean, just volume wise, right? He's a guy.
Yeah, he's going to get fed, dude. I think it's so definitely going to happen that if Rawls is out, that he's just going to be the guy all game against the Packers. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, and I mean, they're saying CJ Prosise is 100% healthy, so we'll see what happens there, and whether they use him a decent amount. But yeah, I mean, you would think that's at least you think minimum 15 touches for Lacy, right? If Rawls doesn't play.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, 15 touches at the running back position. That's a flex worthy guy to me.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm about it.
Cool.
You said you think Seattle's going to win this one. Is that who your pick is?
It should be, because I did say that, and in my heart of hearts, I would say it's like 60-40 leaning towards Seattle, but it doesn't feel right to pick against Green Bay week 1, so I got to take Green Bay.
All right, I'll take Seattle for that your side of the mind.
I knew that's why you asked that, and I feel bad because I'm just copping out. Like, I think the Packers will lose, but I picked them to win. You're just like, oh, my logic, I guess.
What do our picks here really mean anyway? So it's all right.
Everything.
Everything. All right. Carolina.
When they send this podcast in a time capsule out into space or something, and it's received by the aliens one day, it'll mean everything.
Those aliens are going to be like, Rodgers just contradicted himself.
Yeah, like annihilate.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing that costs us Earth's existence is you contradicting yourself on that game pick. So when the aliens blow up the Earth in a couple of years, blame Rodgers on that one. All right. Let's get back into these games. We got 4 more left. Let's go to Carolina at San Francisco. Carolina is a 5.5-point favorite. The over-under is 47.5 points. The big thing, because we know San Francisco was a historically bad run defense last year, and we know they've done things as well to shore that up, they got Reuben Foster. I'm sorry, who was their first fucking draft pick too? The defensive end or whatever. Anyway, they've done things to shore up that defense, particularly through the draft. So we'll see if they're as bad as they were last year, but they were still historically bad last year. So theoretically, whoever's getting the backfield work in Carolina should be a great play. So that's the question here. What do you expect out of the McCaffrey-Stewart split? And are you confident in playing either one or both of them?
So I think that I am confident in playing both of them. And in our league, actually, where I drafted Jonathan Stewart in like the 13th round as my running back 5 or 6, I'm starting him this week. Because I think you have to at least assume, and it's a Joe Mixon situation, by the way. I'm picking Jonathan Stewart over Joe Mixon.
Okay.
So I think it's the safer play. I don't think that McCaffrey is going to be regardless of how he's used, he could be the number one. You know, I've already said Panthers all week, all year, all day, everything. I think they're going to have a great year offensively, especially. But I don't think McCaffrey is ever going to be a guy when they go up to, run the clock out and barrel down in between the tackles and be a 25 carry. He might be a 20 touch guy. Not quite David Johnson, though, where he's going to be their lead runner as well. And they just signed Jonathan Stewart to big money, too. I think the Panthers go big in this game, and I think that they just feed Jonathan Stewart. And I think the whole offense up to that point will still go through McCaffrey, Olsen, and Benjamin. But I think when push comes to shove in the fourth quarter, Jonathan Stewart, that's why they signed him, to be their closeout guy. I truly think that. And he's still got some years under him. He had a good year last year.
Yeah. No, I think you make a very good point there. I'd agree that I think they're both pretty startable this week against this San Francisco team. It will be interesting to see if they go up as big. As you're saying, I think a lot of it depends on how Cam does early in there. But you're right. I completely agree on the guys that you want to start out of the Panthers. On the San Francisco side, you're starting Hyde, and I think you can start Garcon. Is there anyone else really there that you're looking to start?
No, what I wanted to ask you is, do you think that anybody else will even be ownable this entire year on that team?
The only way is if Hyde gets hurt or loses his job.
Right. So say barring no injury, but like even if there's some secondary receivers catching touchdowns, if Garcon and Hyde are productive and healthy, I don't see any reason for anybody on the 49ers being owned otherwise.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I don't think there's any reason to.
Also, just to interject, because I know you know this as well, the 3rd overall pick for the Niners in this year's draft was Solomon Thomas,
right,
the D lineman. And I also took the opportunity. This is a great pitch for us. I asked Alexa, the Alexa app, which if you download the Let's Talk Fantasy Football app on Android or iOS, you can use your Amazon Alexa Echo or Echo Dot to access our app. And you guys should totally do that shit, because I just did.
Boom. Fucking not even planned promo, dog. You're fucking that was professional as hell. And now I'm being extremely unprofessional by just congratulating you on it.
Right now the aliens are gonna listen in the future and be like, redemption, they have a chance.
There we go. We're keeping ourselves alive, kind of. So who do you have to win this game?
I'm gonna go Panthers for sure.
Oh, really? After you said they were going to go up huge. No, I agree. I think the Panthers will win this game. Let's move on to the Giants and the Cowboys. As we said, Zeke is playing. Will Odell play? That's a huge question. But before we get into that, Dallas is a 4-point favorite right now. The over-under is 47.5. So we know that Zeke is playing. You are obviously playing Zeke, and you are not playing McFadden because of that. Talk to me about the Dak, Dez, Cole Beasley, Bryce Butler. No, not Bryce Butler, probably.
No.
But talk to me about the rest of that Cowboys offense.
I'm down with Dak and I'm down with Dez, but one of the things that I was off on Dez for, and it was stupid because I was very on Dak in the offseason, but kind of off Dez, and the reasoning is aligned for their success, goes hand in hand. It's just not a great schedule, and Dak played terribly against the Giants last year. Dez didn't play particularly well against the Giants last year, especially on they're in Dallas, actually. They're in Dallas. So Dak also had a home road split situation towards the end. I mean, I guess every quarterback plays better at home. I'm still about it, but I'm wondering if you're in like a 10-team league and own Dak, if there's better options, if there's like, those Carson Palmers and Tyrod Taylor. I would say no. I would still lean towards Dak. You got to start Dez, but I'm definitely not expecting that to be the bulk of my production this week.
Okay, that's fair. I'm pretty much in the same spot there. Where you got to start Dez. I was off drafting Dak to begin with, so I don't own him at all. And I guess if you drafted him, you're starting him, but I don't think you need to at all, by any means.
I'm playing Dak against you this week, bitch.
Ah, that sucks. Oh wait, no, that's good. Yeah. I don't think he's going to do well. All right. Let's move on to the Giants. The big question here is Odell Beckham Jr. going to play? The latest news is that he's day-to-day, though I think the quote was that he's more hopeful than anything else. So it's like he says he's
Odell scoop.
What's that Odell scoop?
I got that Odell scoop. So today at Giants practice, before the practice, he worked out on the sidelines without a brace, without any sort of support on that ankle. And then like the media was just going crazy about it, like, oh, Odell's already. And then when practice started, he didn't practice with a team. So okay. I'm wondering, my take on that is definitely assumptive would be that he's going to play week 1 and they're just being super, super careful about it. If he's doing workouts in front of the media without any sort of support or anything like that, he's going to go. Definitely got to keep an eye on it and don't take that as fact. But that would be what I would think, right? I mean,
that would make a lot of sense. And if Odell goes, you're playing him, which it would be unfortunate if it's a decoy situation, but I don't see why you would fucking do that week 1. Just rest your. Honestly, if I'm them, I'm resting him no matter what.
Oh yeah,
but
Dallas is a huge game though, man. You want to win?
Yeah, that's true.
Especially when if you win that game and then Zeke's gone for 6 weeks, you got to lay it down. That's what I'm thinking.
I guess that's a very good point. You're right. My thinking was get the wide receiver healthy and then go from there, but you're completely right there. So
yeah, your team wins more often than my team does.
I'm looking at the long game more so, but
yeah.
If Odell plays, obviously you're playing him. So let's go. First scenario: Odell plays. Any interest in Brandon Marshall or Sterling Shepard?
Definitely not Shepard, and Brandon Marshall preferably not. Though the matchup is sort of favorable.
The Cowboys secondary is going to suck ass this year, dude. It's going to be bad.
I'm saying I put that in a wide receiver 3 or 4 situation. But you know what though? I'm equating it in the Alshon Jeffrey range, and I think I'd play Brandon Marshall over Alshon Jeffrey.
Interesting. I mean, the matchup is certainly way better. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think Brandon Marshall's a very good start this week. I don't own him at all.
Me neither.
Not for like any particular reason. Like I was fine with him at his ADP. It just like it never came around to me.
I took him in the first round last year, and that's why I don't.
Right. And then like you said, no Shepard. Obviously, if Odell doesn't play, are you willing to give it a chance?
Yeah, I think I am. I think it would go for the same logic as Brandon Marshall. I think that Sterling Shepard and Brandon Marshall are talented enough to be 1 and 2s on a an average offense anyway.
That's true.
If Odell isn't there, I think it's totally fine to roll them out there if you need to.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. The Giants' backfield is I think this for me as an owner of Paul Perkins in some situations, this is a see how they break up the snaps type of situation. See how much work Vereen gets. See how much work Perkins gets. And then make decisions based on that going forward. But I don't want to play him at all.
Yeah, if you don't have 3 better options than any Giants running back, you fucking blew it, dude. Or lady.
Very, you fucking blew it, Dame.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. That's just kind of the way that is. Who are you taking here?
I will take the Cowboys.
I'm going to take the Giants.
All right, I like that. One last thing I'd say too is if you're an Ezekiel Elliott owner, try and get Darren McFadden. I think roll that out there, get your handcuff. It's the most useful handcuff. Don't necessarily overbuy for it. But I think like whatever running back 3, if you own Ezekiel Elliott, whatever your third running back is, do you think that's worth giving up for Darren McFadden? Because if I own Darren McFadden, I'm willing to take a running back 3 and switch it over to the Zeke owner.
Yeah, probably. I think that's fair.
Yeah, just try and do that. It's just beneficial. You get the Cowboys backfield all year, no matter what, pretty much.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on to New Orleans and Minnesota. Minnesota's a 3-point favorite, which is interesting. The over-under here is 48. So honestly, another game that should be relatively high scoring and pretty close, which is good shit for fantasy. We're looking at the Willie Snead suspension, obviously, on the New Orleans side. So you've got Michael Thomas, who's a must start. You're starting Drew Brees. What do you think about Ted Ginn? Is he going to get enough volume with Snead out? And then also, is Brandon Coleman drawing any attention from you?
So I think that Ted Ginn will not get the volume necessary, the presumed volume to make it worth a start. Is it possible that he gets that volume? Yes, but I don't think it's that you can justify saying that the right bet is that the game script goes that Ted Ginn catches the ball at least 5 times. It's possible, and it's probably what should happen. But when I alluded to a question before to bank off Ted Ginn, but with Jared Cook, when I said that I wasn't pumped on starting him and I wanted your advice on the situation, my first thought was Kobe Fleener. And I was like, dude, don't do this. I know. It's like, don't do this. And I was like, it makes sense, though. Kobe Fleener could catch a touchdown. And then I looked and I forgot that last year Minnesota was freakishly good against the tight end. I think they allowed 2 touchdowns.
Right. Harrison Smith plays against their tight ends, and he's one of the best safeties in the league. So, yeah. Thank God, man.
Yeah, that was literally like yeah. That was pretty much my rationale, and I wanted to bank that off you. And what I wanted to ask before was, can you talk me back into Kobe Fleener? And it seems like you don't want to or should.
No, I fucking hate Kobe Fleener. I try to have as much of a blank slate when it comes to evaluating guys year to year in their situations and not taking biases of like this guy screwed me or whatever into each year. Kobe Fleener's like the exception to that because I bought all into him last year, and I think it was either you or Vinny who brought up the quote that I had last year as well, where Kobe Fleener could roll out of bed and be a top 5 tight end.
That wasn't me, and I'm glad I heard that just now.
That was a direct quote that I had last year, and that did not happen. And I think the reason why is because he is a bad football player. He is a bad tight end, and he does not deserve the money that he is making.
Right. The heat lingers when logic is still on your side while you're failing.
Yeah.
Like you're like this, it still makes sense even in week 8 when you still blow. It's like this still just should be a thing that works, and it won't. Yeah. And it's your fault forever.
Yeah. It's so yeah, fuck Kobe Fleener. Don't play him ever. Don't play him this week against the Vikings with Harrison Smith covering him.
And then just to say on Brandon Coleman, don't touch that shit at all. That's all I'm going to say. That's my advice.
Not even a little bit?
Not in anything season long. Leave it alone. Snead will be back in 3 weeks. Ted Ginn is risky enough.
What if Brandon Coleman gets like 2 touchdowns this week?
I mean, it's worth an ad, but are you going to do it again? And let me see who the Saints play in week 2 while we talk about this. So would you would you be willing to start Brandon Coleman if he caught 2 touchdowns? Say Brandon Coleman gets 10 targets, 2 touchdowns, 90 yards.
Oh, yeah. I'm starting the shit out of him next week.
Oh, guess who he plays next week?
Who?
The Patriots.
Ooh. Interesting. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, count me in for mildly intrigued at Brandon Coleman.
Whoa, okay, interesting. I want none of it. I'm scared. I know nothing. It's the deep end of the pool, and I'm just learning how to swim.
Fair enough. I'm also count me in for willing to start Ted Ginn this week. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Vikings. So they are the favorite here, and as much as we shit-talked Dalvin Cook over the offseason, it appears this is his job. Do you think this is a breakout game for him? Do you think he's a trap? What's your opinion here?
So we've kind of soured on Dalvin Cook early on as a podcast, I feel like, because of his ridiculous ADP early on and like how he's proven nothing. And if you drafted him as a top 2 running back for sure. And again, this is one of those situations where this could be his best matchup at home against the Saints. Are you kidding me? For the entire year. So if he's going to – I know as a doubter of Dalvin Cook, I'm going to be sitting here and just like if he does not put up 25 PPR points, I'm going to be like, that dude sucks. And it was a reach for everybody. So if it's going to happen, it's going to be this one. You absolutely must play him. You got to back up where you took him because I have not seen a draft where he made it out of the 6th round.
Yeah, you're right. It is probably the best matchup he's going to have all season. You have to play him, and you should expect a great game from him. If you don't get one, then yeah, there's cause for concern. If this guy can't, have a great game against the Saints at home, like he said, then maybe he wasn't worth that draft pick. Minnesota passing game. I think I'm willing to start Diggs, and I'm like kind of in on Thielen. Are you willing to start Sam Bradford as a streamer too? Looking at it,
yeah,
I feel like he would be pretty good.
Home against New Orleans, again, one of his better matchups, and he's in that top 20 quarterback. I put him right there with Carson Palmer and Tyrod for the week. Probably on the lower end, but in the Wentz region for sure, like 15, 16 overall.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I honestly hadn't considered it a ton, but yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And then obviously Kyle Rudolph, if you drafted him, you're starting him for sure. Because he's a starting tight end with the amount of targets he gets. All right, who are you taking in this one?
I will take the Vikings.
I'm going to take the Saints. I think Minnesota might be a little bit overrated going into this, but let's go last game of the week. We have San Diego at Denver. Denver is a 3.5-point favorite. The over-under is 43.5. As you noted here, Denver signed Jonathan Williams. What does this mean for CJ Anderson? Does it mean anything? And are you still cool with starting him this week?
Oh, I am sketched out on CJ Anderson big time, dude. I can't believe I'm looking at his current ADP right now, running back 23, second pick of the 6th round. So first off, Jamal Charles situation, right? He's there, and they brought him in, and everybody was like, oh, maybe he's washed up, and he's going to be the backup. Then, oh, no, he's probably going to get cut because the only reason that they're going to keep him is if he's going to be featured in some sort of role. And Jamal Charles is probably not, but could have been at points a Hall of Fame player. Right? Would you say?
I think he's definitely a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Now that I think about it, he definitely is.
He's the most efficient running back of all time.
His yards per carry is literally ridiculous. You're right. I should have not even doubted it. But anyway, so he was sort of a guy that people expected could get cut, and then they kept him. And when they kept him, the word started going around like, whoa, if Jamal Charles is being signed to the 53-man roster and they have 3 running backs, you would assume it's with some sort of plan and some featured role. So CJ Anderson buyers were like, whoa, this is weird, and I don't love this. And then you go ahead and trade for another running back? Or was it a trade? Yeah, it was trade.
No,
they claimed him off waivers? It was waivers.
Yeah, because the Bills cut him.
Right. I apologize. That's right. So, but either way, I mean, you go out and you get another like number 2 quality potential running back. What does that say about CJ Anderson? Not even just for the game-to-game crowded backfield, but their faith in him going forward, because Jamal Charles is a potential guy that it's like, hey, let's see what we got. Let's see what he's still got in the legs. But Jonathan Williams is a young guy.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. My thinking with Jonathan Williams is there are three possibilities with him. 1, the Bills are a terrible franchise that can't evaluate talent. 2, the Bills are tanking and just didn't want the good backup running back on their team. Or 3, he sucks. And I feel like to be cut on a team where they have no fucking running back depth whatsoever, Mike Tolbert is their next running back up. Like, either the Bills have to be complete morons, which is definitely possible based on their offseason moves, or they have to be, just throwing this season out the window and trying to tank for the first pick, or he's really bad.
Oh, no, finish, yeah. Yeah, he could be really. But the way I look at that is if you're the Broncos, you're saying that we have CJ Anderson, who we have seen had success and is expected to be a feature back for us. We have Ronnie Hillman. We're going to sign Jamal Charles, and that does not quite satisfy us. And to me, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, they don't have Ronnie Hillman anymore. They have Devontae Booker still there.
Oh, they don't have Ronnie
But-
Hillman? Oh, yeah,
No,
wait,
no,
he
no.
went to the that's what I meant. Yeah, because he went to the
Yeah, yeah.
Vikings last year or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I
They
apologize.
have Devontae Booker.
Yeah,
But yeah, no.
Devontae Booker.
Yeah,
But
no.
still, the point still stands.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a very good point, and it's that they're clearly not cool with just rolling in there with C.J. Anderson as the guy. So that's definitely fair. I still think he's probably worth starting this week, but I mean, I'm concerned season long. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm out on CJ Anderson for this week and definitely season long. I'm glad I own none of him.
Okay, fair enough. Denver passing game. Are you starting Thomas and Sanders?
Yeah, I think that's a good matchup. You probably drafted them as such. It's like week one, you kind of just got to go with what the team that you made.
Yeah, that's
really
pretty fair. And then the Chargers side of the ball, obviously Melvin Gordon's a guy that you're not sitting. Keenan Allen is likely a guy you're not sitting either. Is there anyone else like the Tyrell Williams or like Travis Benjamins or Hunter Henrys, which I'm still convinced Hunter Henry was a terrible draft pick, but is there anyone else on that team that you're looking to start?
No, and also definitely to hammer that point home, sit Tyrell Williams. I think in both games last year against the Broncos when Keenan Allen was out too, I think he had 32 total yards in both games, two of his worst games of the season. They just shut him down last year, and there's no reason to expect that that'll go any differently. So those are the only two Chargers I'm playing.
I'm a little nervous about Allen too. If I had other options, I would consider sitting him week one.
So I own Keenan Allen in 2 leagues, and I don't have other options, and it doesn't feel good.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would be pretty nervous going into that. But we'll see what happens. Is there any argument to play Phillip Rivers this week?
I don't think so, literally at all. It's his worst matchup of the year on the road at Denver. No, it's the worst matchup of any quarterback could have.
Yeah, it's terrible. You don't need to play Phillip. Pick up literally anyone else. Who are you taking in this one?
You know what? I'm going to take the Chargers.
All right, I'll go with the chalk then, and I'll take Denver. But I am intrigued by the Chargers. I bet the Chargers over this year in terms of the win totals. So
I've seen that as people talking about that, and I'm not educated enough to know.
It's honestly, for me, it's just that they've been so hurt, particularly at the offensive line. I've said every year for the past 3 years, their offensive line will be better this year, and it hasn't gotten better because they just every player on their offensive line gets hurt every single year. It's like the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. So that's my big one. And
you're a Mets fan, and that's a crossover sports, but that's saying something, dude.
Yeah, right.
The New York Mets had like 4 guys needed season-ending surgery from swinging a bat. So that's saying something. That's a serious statement.
Yeah, no, for real. All right, so that does it for the games. Let's get into a couple reader questions before we close it out for this week. First question from Chris. Who can I replace Cameron Brate with for week 1? Witten, Hooper, and Clay are still available. I have no one else to drop besides Brate. Are any of these worth picking up or possibly replacing Brate long-term? Or should I just go into week 1 without a tight end because I'm facing Zeke and David Johnson anyway?
Chris,
that's not
fair.
That's fair. It's a really shitty matchup.
Game. Oh, man.
Yes. Sorry, Chris. That being said, I would drop Cameron Brate for Austin Hooper right away.
I would say the exact same thing. Normally, if there were worse options, I would say just don't go tight end and just go to bed Sunday at 10 a.m. and just let it go. But no, Hooper is at least equal to Brate, if not more upside, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm drafting Austin Hooper ahead of Cameron Brate anyway, and I think he's going to have a more productive season. I mean, I'm one of the high ones on Hooper, but still.
And I like this guy too because he's crazy as me to ask Charles Clay because I was thinking that too. And I would say don't do it. If Charles Clay catches a touchdown this week, I'm going to be yelling to stream him every fucking week until the season's over. I'll say right now.
I hope that doesn't happen. I don't know if I can take that.
Me and Chris screaming Charles Clay every week.
That's great. All right, so second question here from Jordan. I had Winston starting week 1, but with the game being postponed, I have Stafford in as the starter now. Should I stick with Stafford or pick up someone like Palmer, Manning, or Bradford from the waivers? So we've kind of covered quarterback streamers a little bit, but Rogers, what do you think here?
I would say that I prefer all of those guys over Stafford this week.
Yeah, and I'd add in Carson Wentz as well as a guy that I prefer over Stafford. So yeah, Palmer, Bradford, not as big on Manning for me, but definitely Carson Wentz as well for me.
You like Tyrod over Stafford this week?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
The Arizona pass defense is just really good. So, I mean, we'll see what happens there. All right. Not last. There's three more. So from Dax's 10 Debak, that's an Instagram handle. If you don't follow us on Instagram, do that. We'll answer your questions and stuff. And you get pictures of things, which are wonderful as well. So from Dax's 10 Debak, who would you start at wide receiver? Keenan Allen, Fitz, or T.Y. Hilton? Rogers, I'll put it up to you.
I was going to say you take this because you speak for both of us on your Fitz love earlier.
Oh, it's Fitz, yeah.
The Fitz play makes so much sense. There's so many concerns around the other two, and Fitz is just – it's just the right play.
Yeah, it's Fitz. It's not a question. It's not close. Next question is from Slasher18 on Instagram. What do you expect from Gurley this year? And we kind of talked about it this week with the matchup against the Colts that we expect big things. But Rogers, what do you think about the full year?
What I would say I could best describe my Gurley expectations will be right around where he gets drafted. I think he's going to be a lot better than that sophomore campaign. I think the Rams as a whole are going to be better. And that's really what I think will help Gurley out. We've seen running backs fall over like Trent Richardson and sophomore running backs like that and Doug Martin. And it's because the teams were just really, really terrible teams. So I think the fact that Todd Gurley was serviceable last year and the team should be better and their schedule at some points is pretty favorable. I think that his success will be right around at least within 5 picks of where he's being drafted. I expect him to finish in the top 15 at least this year, running back.
Yeah, I think lower end of the top 10 for me in terms of running backs. I think the best thing that could have happened to him, obviously, besides getting out of Jeff Fisher purgatory this offseason, was best thing to happen for Gurley's fantasy value, at least, was Lance Dunbar starting the season on the PUP list, because this gives Gurley a chance to establish himself as not only their early down back, but also their passing down back. And if he does that well enough earlier in the year, when Dunbar comes back, sure, he'll take some volume, but not all of it. So that's huge. I think if Gurley can establish himself as a guy who can handle catching balls out of the backfield at the NFL level, which he's certainly got an opportunity to do, then you're looking at a top 10 back for sure this year.
Yep.
And then last question from Jack Hirschfield, again via Instagram. Thoughts on this trade? So Jack here is giving up OBJ, Crabtree, and Coleman. I'm guessing that's Corey Coleman. Not Brandon Coleman. And he is receiving
OBJ, Crabtree, and Corey Coleman, right?
Yeah. Did I fuck that up?
I think the sound just went out for a minute. I just want to let everyone know.
Ah, shit. Okay. And Jack will be receiving Devontae Freeman, Zeke, and Tyrell Williams. I didn't read this question at all beforehand, so I need a moment to like kind of process this and think about it. My initial thoughts are don't fucking do that. But
yeah, I was gonna say I want to think into it a little bit more for a second, but don't trade for Zeke. Don't do it. Just don't do it. That's I think that I can make a blanket statement of saying don't go and trade for Zeke before week 1. Just don't.
Yeah, like why didn't you just draft him? I mean, if we're looking at like the ADPs of these guys, I think the OBJ, Crabtree, and Coleman, I think theirs are better than the other three. And I mean some of this depends on your relative depth otherwise, because if you're struggling at running back, I mean, like I guess. But yeah.
See, so I'm going to keep OBJ, Crabtree, and Coleman. But just the one last thing I want to say on this is that if you went into your draft and you obviously assumed that Zeke was going to miss 6 games probably, right? And you didn't think that it was worth it to draft him, why then, when the worst case scenario is solidified, would you then go out and pay a price to get him? It makes no sense.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. It doesn't make any sense really. So,
I'm just saying, because I've thought about it myself. I'm not saying that it's a bad idea. I'm just saying, like, just don't get caught up in the hype that he's playing week 1. Stick to your guns. You weren't willing to pay the price during the draft, so don't pay that same price before any games have been played when he's still missing the same thing. Sorry, I just didn't want to make like I was like insulting.
No, I agree with you there. I don't think there's really a reason to trade for Zeke, and I would not be making that trade if I were you, Jack. So yeah, that's it for our questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that rundown of the games and kind of our drafts a little bit, and whatever else. Rogers, you got anything else for this?
No, man. Hell yeah to football being back. That's it. Enjoy.
Yeah, football's back. Sorry, go ahead.
And also, I was just going to say hello, aliens, as well.
Yes, hello. If you're listening to this, aliens, first of all, hello. Second of all, please don't kill us based on this podcast. That would be unfortunate. I don't want to be the reason for the extermination of the human race.
But if it's my fault, just tell my enemies first so they know.
Right. So they can get
that's why it happened.
Yeah, you are dying because of this asshole.
Yeah.
That would definitely be the ultimate, like, fuck you to send them off,
Just
anyway.
enemies.
Yeah, just enemies, not friends, because then yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You're making a lot of sense here, Rogers.
I know.
All right, so before we let you guys go, we just want to say, thank you for listening. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, subscribe to us, and if you think we're doing a good job, give us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts, I guess. Make sure you check out, as Rogers so smoothly put in before, make sure you check out the Let's Talk Fantasy Football app, available on iOS and Android, and it is compatible with your Amazon Echo or Echo Dot. I think that'll about do it for the plugs. Guys, really fucking enjoy week 1. It's here. The drafts are done and we enjoyed those, but now it's football season. It's time to fucking beat all of our close friends and coworkers and whoever else you play with at fantasy football. And that's what we're here to help you do. So for Rogers, I am Walsh. Later, podcast.